Today I'm going to be making a rib sandwich that is going to put the McRib to shame. That's because this mega rib sandwich is going to be using a whole rack of St. Louis ribs. So I found this recipe on the ThermoWorks website. It looked amazing and it looked really fun to do, so I wanted to give it a try. Now for this recipe, they tell you to use a St. Louis rack of ribs. The reason they say that is because it lays flat, so it'll be easier to lay down on the sandwich later. So that sounds good to me. I really enjoy St. Louis style ribs. My only concern with this is we're going to be cooking this super tender so we can just pull these bones out. Now, if you're familiar with the St. Louis rack of ribs, you know at the end of the bones here, there's cartilage pieces. So I'm just a little concerned about those pieces staying in the meat, and then when you take a bite, you're gonna be chewing on a hard piece of cartilage, and that's not gonna be very pleasant. So I went ahead and already trimmed these ribs up pretty good, as you can see. And what I did to try and help with that is I cut as close to the bone here as possible. That way I was hoping to get rid of most of the cartilage or make it so that it will come out in the end. Now on the bottom here, I have removed the membrane, and if you've seen any of my rib videos, you know I like to leave the membrane on. The reason I pulled it off today is because I know we're gonna be pulling these bones out, and I was worried if I left the membrane on, it would be a little bit harder to pull the bones out, since that membrane will stick to the back of the bone. But let's go ahead and get some seasoning on these ribs. So we're gonna start with the bottom. And I'm using this Saltgrass 7 steak spice. I know it says it's a steak spice, but this stuff goes great on pork. And what I really like about it is the color, and it is pretty pepper heavy, which is what I like in my barbecue. This stuff will give any meat a fantastic red color. That's why I'm using it today on these ribs. But what you're gonna wanna do is just use any barbecue rub you have. If you wanna just do salt and pepper, that'll be fine. We will be using a barbecue sauce later. Make sure to get the sides. And as with most barbecue, you're gonna want a nice, generous seasoning of this barbecue seasoning on here. Now I'll put a link to this down in the description below if you're interested in this seasoning. It is fantastic on steak, but it works so well with absolutely everything. And there you go. See what I mean about the color? These ribs already have an absolutely fantastic color. So these are ready for the smoker, and I'm gonna be using my Z-Grill's 700D3 pellet smoker for these. It is a fantastic pellet smoker. I've done a lot of cooks on it already, and I am very impressed with the quality of this smoker. And again, like the seasoning, I will put a link to one of these grills down below if you are interested. Be sure to check them out. I also did a full review on this pellet smoker. If you're interested, I'll put a link to that video down below, or I'll put the link up here. You can check it out after you're done watching this video. So I've got that grill set to 250 degrees. It is all set. So let's go ahead, get these ribs, and we're gonna throw them out on the pellet smoker. All right, we are out at the Z-Grill's pellet smoker. You can see we are at 250 degrees. So let's go ahead and get these ribs on. Now I'm gonna wanna monitor the internal temperature. So I'm gonna go ahead and feed my temperature probe through the little grommet on the side of the grill. It's a nice little feature there so you don't have to run it under the lid. All right, let's go ahead and get these ribs. Just lay these down here. I just wanna scrunch them up so I can get that meat to stick up a little bit. That way I can get my probe in here. And there we are. Got the probe in there because we're going to want to be monitoring the temp on this. Let's get this closed up and let this cook. So we're just going to let those ribs cook out there on the smoker for a couple hours. Now I've never tried this recipe before, so you are on the journey with me here, and we're going to see how these things come out. Anything can happen here, and if I screw this up, I'm sure you will not be watching this video. So you watching this is a good sign that this was a successful cook, and I'm happy about that. But me, real time now, I don't know how this is gonna work out, so hopefully it's good. I'm gonna try and follow these directions as best as I can. And what they say is leave them on there for 2 hours until they get a nice bark. Then we wanna pull them off, get them wrapped up in some tin foil, put them back on the smoker, crank the smoker up to 275, and we're gonna monitor the internal temperature of those ribs until they get to 200 degrees. Once they are at 200 degrees, we will unwrap them, put them back on the smoker, and lather them in some delicious barbecue sauce. And today I'm gonna be using a smoky peach whiskey sauce that I've done on some ribs in my Memorial Day cooking video. If you wanna see that, I will put a link down below. But it is a nice sweet barbecue sauce that I think is gonna go great on these ribs. But once we get them back on the smoker and sauced up, We just want to bring them up to 195 degrees. Now they will be at 200 when we pull them out of the foil, but once we get the sauce on there, the temperature will have dropped. So we will want to bring them back up to 195 degrees. Once we hit that mark, we'll pull them off, let them rest, and then we can get our sandwich ready, which is super simple. All you're gonna need for this is a loaf of bread, some red onion, and some sliced pickles of your choice. So this method of cooking where we wrap it up in foil and bring it to 200 degrees is really gonna allow these to be super tender. And that's what we want, because we're gonna have to go back through the rack of ribs and pull the bones out, and hopefully none of that cartilage will be stuck in there, and we can take that whole rack of ribs, throw it right on our sandwich roll, and make one of the biggest rib sandwiches you have ever seen. That's the plan, but let's go ahead, jump ahead 2 hours and check on these ribs. There's been 2 hours on the ribs. Let's give them a check. Oh yeah. You can see they have a very nice bark right now. Just what we're looking for. Now for an internal temperature, we are at about 190 degrees, and I have bumped the smoker to 275 because that is what the instructions say for the next step. So all I'm gonna do is move these out of the way. I'm gonna get that tin foil down. Now I wanna throw the ribs right in the foil and get it wrapped up. And I want to leave that probe in there. Another thing I'm going to do that the recipe doesn't say, I'm going to spray a little vinegar in here. This is a mix of vinegar and water, and I think that's really going to help tenderize these ribs. So now I'm just going to go ahead and get these all wrapped up, nice and tight. There we go, we're at 275. Now we're just going to let these go till they hit 200 degrees. All right, so it's been another 45 minutes and these things hit 200 degrees. Check these things out. You can see how much the meat has pulled off the bone. That tells you these are going to be extremely tender. So now all I want to do is try and get these carefully off the foil. They are hot, very hot. All right, so now I'm just gonna take some of this peach whiskey barbecue sauce, put it all over the top here. Let's get my brush, coat this whole rack in this delicious barbecue sauce. This stuff smells so good. There's big chunks of peach in there. This stuff is almost more like a jelly than a barbecue sauce, but I'll tell you what, it is absolutely delicious. So we got a nice coat of that barbecue sauce. As you can see, the internal of the ribs is now 172. Turn the grill down to 225. So we're gonna get this closed up, let those ribs get to 195, and we will pull them off. All right, it's been about another 45 minutes. These ribs are back at 195 degrees. Just check these babies out. Sauce set up beautifully. These things look delicious. So let's go ahead and get these off of here. Pull that probe out. And these are so tender. Gotta be super careful with those. So I'm gonna get these in, let them rest, and in the meantime, let's get this sandwich ready. All right, so I got the ribs off and I've been letting them rest. And while I was letting them rest, I went ahead and got our bread ready. So in the recipe, they tell you to butter a loaf of bread and toast it or put it on a griddle or a flat top. So what I decided to do was put some mayo on this bread, and then I went ahead and threw it in my oven and just toasted it up nice. I think the mayo is going to add a nice flavor to these ribs. But the bread's all set. I went ahead, cut up some red onion, and then I have some pickles we're gonna put on top of this. This is going to be a delicious sandwich, but let's go ahead and get our ribs ready for this sandwich. So we'll get this to the side. Here are the ribs, and check these things out. Do those not look absolutely fantastic? You can see it's pulling off the bone there. That means these are super tender, and we can probably just pull these bones right out like nothing. So let's go ahead and do that now. So these bones are coming out nicely. Just look at how clean the bone comes off the rib. Now you can see the socket here. That's gonna be where your cartilage is attached to. So that's why I'm a little concerned that this piece is still maybe in the ribs. But let's get all these bones out first. All right, so got all the bones out. So there we have a boneless rack of ribs. Now the only thing I'm concerned about, like I said, is the cartilage in here, because if I feel around just like that, there are these little pieces of cartilage in there. So I have the ribs flipped over now. I'm just going through and pulling those little chunks of cartilage out of here, because you're not gonna want that when you take a bite. All right, so I did the best I could. And like I said, this is what I was worried about. These pieces of cartilage in here, there's not too many if you cut it close to the bone like I did. So you can just pick those out. Let's go ahead, get these to the side. Bring our bread back here. And I'm going to just go ahead, lay this right down. Check that out. This is going to be a fantastic sandwich. So now I'm gonna go ahead on top, some of this red onion. As much or as little as you want. I like my red onion, so I'm gonna put a good amount. All right, now we're going on with some pickles. And I have some bread and butter chips. I think these are gonna be the best option for this. There we go. Now all we gotta do, get the top on here and check that out. Delicious mega rib sandwich. This thing looks so good and it smells fantastic. I think this barbecue sauce, along with just the red onion pickles, is going to be exactly what this sandwich needs. So I'm super excited to cut into this and give it a try, but first I gotta take some pictures, so I'll see you when I'm finished. The photo shoot is over, so it is time to try out this sandwich. And this was a super fun cook, and I was surprised at how quick it actually was. It was 2 hours at first to get the bark on there, then I wrapped it up, let it go another 45 minutes to get it to 200 degrees, and it actually got up to about 210 degrees, so you might have been good at a half an hour. But either way, half an hour, 45 minutes to get it to where it needed. Pull it off, throw it on with some sauce for another 45 minutes, and it's finished. It is a super quick cook for ribs. Now, if you're interested in anything I used in my video, I'm gonna put the links to all that down below. And if you're interested in one of those Z-Grill pellet smokers, I'll put a link down below as well. And you can check out my review video if you're actually interested in one of these. But I gotta give this thing a try, so I'm gonna slice it up and see how it came out. So let's cut this thing right down the center. Lost a pickle. Get back in there. Then I'm gonna cut myself off a nice little piece here. Check that out. Does that not look good or what? Just some pickles, onions, and some ribs. But I got my little piece here. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a try. That is amazing. If you have one of these things, you are never gonna want a McRib again. And this was so easy, I'm telling you, this is going to be one of my go-to appetizers when I have people over. This is an awesome sandwich right here. And just with the pickles and red onions is all you need. Now you definitely could probably throw some coleslaw in here, that would be good too, but I like it just as it is. And that smoky peach barbecue sauce tastes so good with this pork. This is an amazing sandwich right here. All right, now I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe right over here. And if you want to see another barbecue video by me, you can check this one out right over here. But most importantly, get out there, smoke something good.